Hi, Marianne. I just want to do a quick preview of the note stuff that I have here. I'm sure you have this all written down. But this is what I'm going to keep looking back and referring to. SA is the sinusoidal axis. So that means when you do this, oops, uh-oh. That means when you do this, it's the middle line, okay? So that kind of tells you this is what shifts up for this guy, okay? Um, So that means it's going to go up or down. Okay. So the amplitude is A. It's the number right in front of it, right? And that tells you how tall it is. So it would be a bigger one. Okay. Period is 2 pi over B. And then the starting point is C. And that I don't think that starting point is bad. I'm going to call it the shift. Okay. So let's take a look at this and see how we do with it. Where'd it go? Oh, I don't think I can write on this. All right, so here we go. Oh no, it reset. Let's see if I can get this back to where I want it to be. Okay, so for this, so this is the parent function, it's sine, right? So 3 sines, that number in front of it is A. Okay, so what that means is the amplitude is higher. So if I have this graph, and you know, this typically goes through and goes up to 1, it's going to go up to 3. Okay, so that's going to be a vertical stretch. That's because of A. That's because of the 3. Okay, the horizontal stretch, right? Horizontal stretch is the period. Okay, so because the period is 2 pi over B, 2 pi over B, make my 2 a little better. And what I have for B is 1/2. Then I have 2 pi over 1/2 is equals the period, right? And that equals, well, let's see here, 2 over 1. So I'm going to invert and multiply. So that's going to be 2 pi over 2, right? So when I reflect it, let me show you that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to invert it times 1 over 2. And it's just pi. Okay, so remember, your base period is pi. Your base period is, oh no, it's not, it's 2 pi. Your base period is 2 pi for the parent function. So this guy right here has a period of 2 pi. This guy, because it's half of that, right? Half of 2 pi is pi. Horizontal stretch, so it's going to be pi instead of 2 pi. Okay, and then this part right here, so remember, it's the opposite. So this is our shift. This isn't the pick. This is the shift. And because it's negative, see how this says positive. So instead of going right, it's going to go left. It's going to go left a pi amount. Okay. So that's kind of the deal. So your base period is, so your period should be 2 pi, but it's really, our period is going to be just pi. So it'd be shorter. Okay. So let's take a look at the next one. So I want to look at that horizontal stretch too. Reflection over the x-axis. So if I do a reflection over the, I'm looking at this right here. This negative right here tells me there's a reflection over the x-axis. Okay. Again, the number in front of sine or cosine tells me A, which is the amplitude. So that's my vertical shrink. Why? Because it's a half. See how this one was a stretch? Because 3 is bigger than 0. Well, bigger, yeah, is bigger than 1. Yeah, bigger than 1. So this is a shrink because 1/2 is less than 1. Horizontal shrink. So let's take a look at that. So we've got our period right here. So if I've got a 4 right here, so my period, my base period is 2 pi. So if I put a 4 right here, my period is going to be 2 pi over 4. So 2 pi over 4 is less than, right? Smaller than 2 pi. Okay? Make sure I'm actually recording this. Good. Okay? So that's why it's smaller. Again, this one, I think I might have said this wrong. So if I did 1/2 here, so if I did 1/2, remember my period is 2 pi over 1/2. So if you divide by 1/2, it's the same thing as multiplying by 2, right? So dividing by 1/2, so 2 divided by 1/2 is going to be the same thing as divided by 0.5, which is going to give you 4 pi, which is bigger. That's why it's stretched. Okay? All right. Okay, the next part. Okay? So what are the transformations for this? So again, we've got a negative sign up here. And that negative sign means there's a reflection. Okay? Then we have this 3. Let's see what this 3 does. 3 is the B, right? So that means it's going to affect our period. B equals period, which is the horizontal part. Okay? So my period is period equals 2 pi over 3. So notice how that's smaller. That's smaller than 2 pi. That's why it's a horizontal shrink. Okay? The period is horizontal, right? And then this part right here. So this right here, this minus C. So this is going to be -1, right? So -1 means right 1. -1 means right 1. And then this is +2, which is the up and down. So this inside part is the left and right. And remember, negative is right and positive is left. And then up to, that's just this part, and this just has a regular one. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this guy right here. We don't have a flip because it's positive. Okay, so there's no reflection. Okay, so the number in front of secant is 2/3, which is A. So if my amplitude is 2/3, that means it's going to be smaller. Remember, amplitude affects the upsy downsy. That's a vertical shrink because less than 1. Okay. Horizontal stretch. Remember, horizontal stretch is your period, right? So my period equals 2 pi over B. So it's 2 pi over 1 over, I'm going to make it a decimal, 0.5. 2 pi over 0.5 is 4 pi, right? And 4 pi is bigger than 2 pi, which is our base. Okay? So remember, if this was a 1, it'd be 2 pi over 1, right? So this would be smaller, and this would be bigger. Okay, so that's why it's got the horizontal stretch. Why is it left 3? Because we're looking at our C value here. This is the opposite, right? So +3 means instead of right, it's going to go left 3. And this is -4. Remember, D is normal, down 4. Okay, so there's the next one. Okay, so this one is harder because you have choices for it, okay? So remember that if it crosses through, I'm going to call this the origin part. If it crosses through this, that's going to be sine. Okay. And if it's a little Humpty Doo thing like that, or like this, as it goes through, whoops. So if it's below, right, that's going to be cosine. Now, the thing is, by shifting it, we can make it sine or cosine. So there is more than one possible answer. More than 1. Okay, so I'm going to show you why this one's right, and I'm going to show you what I would do first. So I'm going to kind of ignore this for just a little bit, okay, and I'm going to just start looking, okay. So I'm going to look at my middle line. This middle line right here, sinusoidal axis is what it's called, and that is 1, 2, 3, okay. So that means that it is down 3. So this thing is going to end at down 3. Okay. Assuming that that's, oh wait, can I read that? Oh, that's 8. So that means this is -2, -4, -6. My bad. I can read, I promise. So that means this is going to be -6. Bad eyes by the old man. You know that one. -6 is the D. Okay. Now, this is going down on the bottom. And remember how what you need to know is if it goes down, this is cosine. And if it goes through, this is sine. Okay, so if on the y-axis, if it's crossing it, that's going to be sine. But if it's maximum or minimum, it's cosine. Okay, so I'm going to note that this is cosine. and I'm going to look for the amplitude, okay? So this goes from -8, -8, -6 to -4, okay? So remember, the regular amplitude is 1, but this amplitude is 2. So that means I need an amplitude of 2, okay? All right, so now, next thing, what is the period of this guy? Period of this guy is looking here from -pi to 0 to pi, okay? So that means my period is normal, okay? So remember, 2 pi is normal. So what that means is my b is 1, okay? So cosine, I'm not going to show the 1. X, and then this minus c tells me, am I going to shift anything? I'm not, okay? So, oh, this one is because it started low, it's going to be negative. So this is y equals -2 cosine x minus 6, okay? Okay, so what they did was pretty similar, except they didn't want to have a negative cosine. What they did was they said, okay, cosine should have a maximum here, okay? So instead of just inverting it, what they did was they shifted it, okay? So they thought of this as being this guy shifted one way, okay? Shifted left. Okay, so what they did was fine, was they shifted it left exactly pi. So if I shifted this to the right pi, then I would have this point right here, down here, and it's the same thing, just shifted a pi over. Okay, remember there's more than one possible answer. Okay, so there you go. So I like to look at it right away as being a sine or a cosine. It doesn't give you a parent function it's supposed to be, so I just identified it right away. Let me change my color and do the next one. So this one, again, this to me is a cosine because it's got the minimum, right? This is the minimum, and it's a negative cosine, okay? So right here, my sinusoidal axis is right here, so that means it's going to be negative cosine, and it's going to be plus 0. I'm not going to write that, but there's D, okay? So now I'm going to look at the amplitude. This up here is 4, so notice how this goes up 4, because the number 4 right here. So that means the amplitude is 4, so it's going to be -4. And then what's my period? Okay, so this goes from the origin thing. This is 6 pi, whoa. So this would be 3 pi, 6 pi, 9 pi, 12 pi. This has to be 12 pi. So my period is 12 pi. So 12 pi equals b equals 2 pi over b. So let me rearrange that. B equals 2 pi over 12 pi. Pi's cancel, 12's cancels. I have one, well, almost cancels. That turns into a 6. So I have 1/6. So this is going to be 1/6. 1/6. And then that's going to be x. Okay. Now this shifted it again. They used sine. I just shifted it. I just started with a cosine, which I think is easier. Let me see if I messed up on how long my period is. 6 pi. So, oh, I see what I did. So let me erase this. My period is wrong. I went from 6 pi over to here. This is 6 pi. So 3 pi, 6 pi, 9 pi, 12 pi. Right? So wait, so here's 6. So here's, so 1, 2 is 6 pi. 1, 2, this would be 12 pi. 1, 2 would be 18 pi. So I messed up on my math here, okay? So 18 pi, sorry about that, 18 pi over b. So b is, make sure that's right. I'm going to erase that and do it again. So I know this is 6 pi, so 2 dots is 6 pi, 12 pi. Remember, I got to go from here to here. There's 18 pi. So 18 minus 6 is 12 pi. Okay. So that's right. It should be 1/6. They have 1/3. So, pause. Okay, so I'm surprised they have this period wrong. I'm 100% right. My period, sure, my period is right, but this is 1/6. Okay, so I did -4 cosine 1/6 x. Okay, plus 0, but I'm going to get rid of it. So this is a correct answer right here. Now let's see if we can prove their answer. Okay, so we'll kind of reverse engineer it. Okay. So because it's -4, right? So it's -4. So when, remember, for sine, if it's going up like this, it's positive. And if it's going down like this, it's negative. Okay. So they're doing a negative sign. So this sign, and we have plus 3 pi. Okay. So first we've got to figure out what the period is. So again, the period is going from here, it's going up, to here going up. So this is 3 pi, 6 pi, 9 pi, 12 pi, 15 pi. 15 pi minus 3 pi is 12 pi. Again, the period is 12 pi. Period equals 12 pi. Okay? So if the period is 12 pi, period is 12 pi, and that equals 2 pi over b. So that means b equals 2 pi over 12 pi, which cancels down to 1/6. So again, that 1/3 is supposed to be 1/6. 100% sure of that. 100% sure. Okay. So then we've got to look at the amplitude. Okay. So this part, check. We don't have our sine part right yet, but we're getting there. Amplitude. This went up 4 and went down 4. That's why it does that. Okay. And then this is going to shift it left 3 pi. Okay. So left 3 pi. So remember, our period is 12 pi. If we shift it 3 pi, 3 pi over 12 equals 1/4. So it's 1/4 of those. So it's going to move one segment here. Okay. So since they said it's negative sign, and it's going to move one segment because this is plus. So plus goes to the left. So I'm going to move it this way, just one segment. So you see how it's going to be going up. So if I had to redraw this, it's going to be going up. I'm going to redraw this and move this just over 1. So it's going to be up here, down, up. It's going to go through here. Okay. So in that case, this negative sign doesn't work for 3 pi. Okay. But I think that comes into they had their period wrong. Okay. So because that period is wrong, that messes it up because the period that they have isn't right. So everything comes down to getting that period right. So I'm going to go to the next part then. Okay. I'm sure what I did was right. 100% sure. All right. So here's the next one. Graph 2 periods of each function. Be sure to find the amplitude in the period. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is find the amplitude because that's A. A is the amplitude, okay? So the amplitude is 1/2, right? I want to point out that this negative means that it has to be flipped over the axis, okay? And then that number in front, this is what gets us the period. So remember, period equals 2 pi over b. So period equals 2 pi over 3, okay? Because this is b, right? B is the thing in front of the x, and here's the thing in front of the x, okay? So when I graph this, okay, so it's sine. So I'm going to graph this because it's negative sign. Positive sign would be this, okay? Negative sign is going to be going the other way. Okay, it says graph 2 periods. Here's one period, here's the second period, okay? So the amplitude is going to be 1/2. Okay, so that means this right here is 1/2, and this down here is -1/2. There's that part right here. Notice on theirs, this is 1, so this is 1/2. Okay, we've got that. All right, the period. So the period for this, so here's one going down, here's the next going down. From here to here, the period has to be 2 pi over 3. So that means right here, I have 2 pi over 3. And this part right here, remember for each step is going to be, this part right here is going to be 3/4 of the period, half the period, 1/4, and that's the start, okay? So I'm going to put that in a different color here. So 3/4 of 2 pi over 3 is going to be 6 pi. This part right here, assuming you've got to draw it, right here is going to be 6 pi over 12. 2 times 3 and 3 times 4. Okay, so that's going to change to 1 pi over 2. Not 1 pi over 2, just pi over 2. Okay, so if this is pi over 2, then this next one is going to be half of 6 pi, is going to be half of 2 pi over 3. So half is going to be, that's going to be 2 pi over 6, which is going to be pi over 3. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so when we draw this, everything we have here so far is good, but I'm going to check my Desmos. Maybe I have my my sign flipped. So hold on. So I'm just going to brag here a little bit. See how they have it going the other way, and this is the way I have it. So we have the same thing, only I have it flipped. So see how mine is going down at the origin? Desmos going down at the origin, right? So, and again, like I said, this is 2 pi over 3. That's my period. And then this is going to be pi over 2, pi over 3, pi over 6. So boom, beat the answer key. What? Yeah. Okay, so let's do the next one. It's good to be butch sometimes. Can I just tell you that? Okay, let me erase these. Okay, same thing here. We got to draw this guy. Okay, so it's not reflected. So because it's a cosine, I know that when it crosses the x-axis, it's got to be going up. Okay. Oh, let me just try and rewrite that. I'll try better to make all my lines straighter. There's my axis. It's cosine and it's positive cosine, so the hump will be up. Okay. I wish my lines were better, but they're not. Okay. So this 2 tells you the amplitude, right? The amplitude. So because it's a 2, it's twice as big as 1. So this is a 2. This is a 4. Okay. So, and then we have x, cosine x, and then we have plus pi over 2. So plus pi over 2. Okay, so notice here I don't have a value for b, no b. So that means my period, remember I said the parent function of it is 2 pi. Now this plus pi over 2 means it's going to be a fraction of it, right? So remember my period is 2 pi. I got to do two of these guys. So if this is 2 pi, right? That means this right here, again, will be 3/4. I'm going to write it so it's easier to multiply. 3/4 times 2 pi is, I'm going to cancel some here, right? 3 pi over 2. That's the red point. Then the next one, I'm supposed to go to a blue point. So on this one, it's going to be half, right? So that's half of that period. So half of 2 pi, 2's cancel. 1/2 times 2 pi, this is going to be pi. So this is just plain old pi. Okay? And then right here is going to be, I see the pattern now, is going to be 1/4 pi. Or pi over 4. I know they do 1/4, but it's pi over 4. That blue point there is going to be pi over 4. So let's take a look at what they have there. Take the glasses off and look. So if I've got this right here, what? They have cosine. Oh, they shifted it. Okay, so that means I did all of this just to see that pi over 2 is 1/4. So this is the problem. So pi over 2 means I shift it 1/4 because pi over 2. So this is pi over 2. Pi over 2. So the period, if I divide this into fourths, so 2 pi 4 is pi over 4. Okay? So this is pi over 2, so I said it's going to shift one section. It's going to shift 2 sections. Okay? So I'm going to make that shift 2 sections. The reason why it shifted 2 sections is pi over 2, right? Pi over 2 is 1/4 of 2 pi. Okay? Let me get this where I can write here. This part right here, okay? This is confusing, that plus or minus, okay? So that shift is going to be, if it is pi over 2, is part of the period. Okay? So if you did pi over 2, if you took 2 pi, because I don't think you have these memorized, but if I took 2 pi on my calculator and divided by pi over 2, I get 1/4. Okay? So that means it's going to shift. I'm not sure that's right. Nope, I get 1/2. Or I get 2. Right. It's going to be equals 2 segments. What do I mean by 2 segments? If I have this right here, and I'm doing so if I'm doing this, you see how part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Because pi over 2 is 2 parts of it. You see how pi over 2 was 2 parts of it? This was pi over 4. This was pi over 2. Right? So as I counted this, so I'm going to shift this pi over 2. Because it's positive, I'm going to shift it to the left. 2 segments. So see how this was the top? 2 segments means that it's going to be the bottom. So if I shift this over 2, so if I know this should be at a certain time, now it's going to be on the bottom. Okay? And that means I'm going to be coming up for each one. Okay? Oops, I moved it too deep. So I'm going to move it. So this was the bottom. I move it 1 segment, 2 segments. I'm at the bottom, and I'm going to be coming up. Okay? So all of this is the same now, only I'm going to start at the bottom. So let's take a look and see how we did. Okay, so we shifted it over 2 segments, and it looks like they shifted it over 1. Let's take a look.